Hey guys. This is part 15 of What If Naruto is hiding her identity and secretly a girl. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 70, The Pup. Kurama's POV. When he came to, the first thing he registered was crying. Wailing, more accurately. For a moment, he couldn't work out where it was coming from. Then he had to scold his own idiocy. The woman had been pregnant, to a strong, little thing. Fetuses with that much chakra typically struggle to remain past the first trimester. He had seen it before. His previous jailer had had to help a few women with those types of pregnancies. It was also why the Uchiha clan often went a decade without any children, and were becoming one of the smallest clans in the village. Kurama hadn't mentioned anything to the woman, she never wanted to listen to him anyway. Instead, he had sent a trickle of chakra towards the forming baby, helping it stabilize itself. He knew very little about babies, but he knew healing chakra would help keep the pregnancy viable. He had had no idea if the thing needed it, but he had shrugged and figured at least it would have been amusing to see the temperamental woman try to handle a baby. "Woman!" he roared before groaning at the ringing it caused in his head. "Shut that thing up!" The screaming increased. "Woman!" He paused. Normally she yelled at him for things like this. Not that he wanted to hear her raised voice at the moment. He felt a presence enter the connection between him and his holder, and peeked an eye open. The area looked different. The bars between them were a burnt red and only vertical, instead of the ashy gray checkerboard he saw whenever the woman wanted to tell him to shut up. The entire space had a red and black look to it, as well as a flooded look. The crying was also louder now. Looking past the bars, he saw a flailing form laying on the damp floor. The thing had 2 legs, 2 arms, tan skin, and a head of the obnoxiously blonde hair that the woman's partner had. The thing also had whisker marks on its cheeks and a sealing mark on its belly. "Woman? Where are you?" he called, his voice cracking. He watched the baby wiggle, their tiny fists shaking under their chin. Hers. She was a girl. "Woman! Your girl is here." "Shoo, you're alright," a male voice whispered through the space. Kurama could tell that he was hearing what the baby could hear. He knew what that meant, and what it meant that the baby was in front of his cage. But it couldn't be that. He hadn't tried to escape. The seal had risked weakening during labor, but he hadn't tried to actively break it. And besides, the idiot had been there to hold it closed. "Your name is Naruto, isn't it?" the voice asked. The back wall filled for a moment of a blond man picking up the baby, a strained smile on his face, but it was not the idiot. Such a beautiful name for a beautiful little girl. "She seems to like you." Kurama knew that voice. It was the old man. The baby's cries were peppering out, and she blinked up at the 2 men, allowing the fox a glimpse of them. "Are you sure I should take her, Lord Third?" "Yes, Inoichi. She's calm with you, and I believe it would be safest at the moment. Not to mention none of Choji's baby things will fit her," a third voice added. "But I'll check when I get home to see if we have any of his old things. No small diapers though. We should have enough clothing and things." "Thanks, Choza," Inoichi assured. "Momiji and I were given way too much stuff for Ino." The baby gave another cry. Sure, Naruto, you're alright. You're safe." "She might be hungry," the big man voiced. "Shit, we don't have formula at home. Maybe Momiji can breastfeed Naruto as well, but I don't want her to have to try to suddenly feed 2 hungry babies. I'll get you provisions as soon as I can. I'll also send our best midwife over. Take Naruto home, get her warm. If Momiji isn't willing or unable to feed her, the midwife will be able to give her a bottle," instructed the third. "Of course." The man, the nurture, paused. "There isn't a risk of that monster getting out, is there?" No, Minato knew what he was doing when he created the seal. He was well aware of the risks the Ninetales posed to his wife and child. As the baby disappeared from the seal's space, Kurama whispered, "I didn't try to escape." The nurture and his wife were sufficient to look after his new jailer. They were a little worried that she wasn't as sociable as the other babies, but he was glad she wasn't like her adopted sister, or the older baby, Big Boy. They were always squealing and going near people. People already shunned the baby because of him. It was better that she realized that early. Perhaps she would be better to handle the outcast nature that came from being a jinchuriki. They were a little surprised that the baby didn't get sick like theirs did, but Kurama had his theories for why that was. At first, he thought the seal that the idiot had put on him was weak, but whilst it did look like it would allow his chakra to leak through and slowly loosen it, that was not why the infant was healing so quickly. Apparently, he had given her a little too much chakra as a fetus that she didn't need to pull on the endless pull locked behind the seal yet. It was this fact alone that gave him a small, tiny, minuscule amount of fondness for the baby. He was also bored, very bored. And that was why he occasionally talked to her. She wasn't very verbal yet, mostly a string of gurgles, but when she crawled her way into the room connecting the two, he found himself monologuing at her and swearing to himself that she understood what he was saying. The woman was pretty fiery. The only one not afraid of her was the idiot, though I think he might have been too stupid to be scared. You better not take after him. Your mother might have been annoying, but arguing with her was my only entertainment. The baby giggled, slamming its chubby arms into the water on the ground. This wasn't the first time she had behaved like this with the fox. When he lowered his head to the bars and snorted at her, she squealed, flailing her arms more. Water splashed in his eyes, making him swear and shake his head. He froze when his words were repeated back to him. Realizing what happened, he cursed again, only for it to be echoed back at him again. No! Stop that! He demanded. The baby didn't listen. Listen here, you brat! The baby stopped laughing and he cursed. Instantly he realized his mistake but couldn't help but notice that she cheered up again. Naruto, someone called from outside. Female Nurture's image appeared on the far wall as the baby's form disappeared from the floor in front of his cage. There you are, darling. In response, the baby swore. Kurama buried his head under a paw and groaned. Naruto! Female Nurture yelped. Where did you learn that word? Puppy! The baby happily proclaimed. I'm not a damn puppy. You are. Puppy mad, the pup added, making Female Nurture frown deeply. He had hoped that since his new host was only a baby that the usual hostility would at least be delayed. The woman had been young when she became his jailer, but at least she had been old enough to understand that everyone's hatred was targeted at him, not so much her. Unfortunately, no, villagers glared at the 1-year-old as her adopted family went shopping, went for walks, or went to visit friends. Nurture's teammates were harmless, but one of their wives wasn't exactly a fan and had banned Naruto from her house. Kurama wasn't too worried about that woman. He had noticed that the pup reacted to the ones who were truly dangerous, or were liable to become dangerous as she aged. He could feel her sensory chakra in action even now. It was only a fledgling of an ability, but already it was able to differentiate threat from annoyance. Even so, she was too young to truly do anything with the skill, and she certainly couldn't keep it going whilst sleeping. However, he didn't need to sleep as much as a human, no matter said human's chakra level, and he was no slouch when it came to sensing his surroundings either. He wasn't sure when he had started doing it, but somewhere during his long life, he had started scanning the area surrounding him and his host. He had been doing it before the pup became his holder, but he wasn't sure if he started doing it early during his time with the woman, or after she got pregnant. He knew it wasn't during his time with the old hag. She had been his least favorite host so far. At least the woman was fun to annoy, even if she saw herself as the first line of defense between him and everyone else. And the pup was entertaining since she would get excited and fall on her face as she tried to walk. That was always enjoyable. But the old hag had seen him as a beast that needed to be caged. She was his first jailer, his true one. It did make him wonder what the pup would end up seeing herself as when it came to him. As he mused over the topic, he felt a pinprick of darkness appear on his radar. No, 2 pinpricks. He reached out for them. The leeching blackness of the chakra also had a hollow feel to it. Empty, endlessly blank, but strong, and coming straight for them. They had no real wish to harm them, but they intended to. Pup, wake up! He roared. The pup's eyes flew open and Kurama could see two shadows hovering in the nursery. Instantly, the pup opened her mouth and screamed. The noise made his ears ring and one of the intruders stumbled back. The other turned towards the other cot where the other baby started to cry as well. Itchy, itchy. The pup started to call. The blond man barreled into the room, summoned by the pup's initial scream, seeing the two ninjas standing in the middle of his daughter's room. The man immediately tried to invade one of the man's minds, but the two strangers made for the window, disappearing into the night. Momiji, look after the girls, the nurturer instructed his wife before pursuing the attackers. He should have paid more attention. Perhaps if he had noticed them entering the estate, recognized them as not belonging to the clan, then the pup would have been able to stay with that family. They had been kind to her, had truly seen her as one of their own. But powerful members of the village used the attack to force the Yamanakas to give up the pup and put her in the orphanage. Kurama doubted he would ever be able to forgive himself. If only he had looked after his pup better, she could have grown up in a loving home. Instead, he spent most days trying hard to heal her as best he could. He didn't even care at that point that healing her so much, and so often, was weakening the seal. It hadn't even crossed his mind that if she died, he would be able to break the seal and escape. She was just a little pup. She didn't deserve to be tormented just because she was the one with the best chakra to cage him. She hadn't chosen to be his jailer. He gained a true chance to break free thanks to the Uchiha brat. Not only did the pup pull on more of his power than she had ever done before in one battle, but then she died. The moment the Chidori had pierced her chest, she had died, her heart being electrocuted. For half a beat he contemplated breaking free. It would be so easy. He could also take the Uchiha brat out since he didn't know the secret to his eyes. The brat deserved to die anyway, killing his host. She had been trying to save him from being used, from being controlled and possessed. Trying to argue that she had stolen his chakra to heal herself, he made her heart start beating again. She was tittering on the edge of consciousness from the pain, so he channeled more energy into her limbs, puppeteering them to fend off the Uchiha brat until she regained control. After the battle, when the brutality of the battle finally caught up to her body, she collapsed, plunging them both into darkness. He slowed his focus on her heart, lowering its beating as far as he could, and made sure to funnel chakra through her brain to stave off any brain damage. From there he looked for the damages that were forcing her to die even with him controlling her heart. There was internal bleeding, extensive internal bruising, and many of her internal organs and muscles had lightning damage. One of her biggest issues was also a small blessing in disguise, though he doubted the pup would notice. Her treatment at the hands of the bitch who ran the orphanage had left scar tissue in a few parts of her body. Her uterus was covered in it, and the bottom of her lungs had been too. The Uchiha brat's attack had shredded her lungs, literally opening the old wounds that he hadn't been able to heal properly at the time. Now, with the seal weakened over time, he was able to heal them in full. He did chuckle at the idea that the pup was at risk of being oxygen high when she woke up. He wasn't sure how much her breathing had been affected by the old injury. Once the lungs had been healed, he was able to start her heart back at a steady pace. After a minute he pulled back, and almost howled with joy when the organ kept pulsing. It wasn't too long after that she regained consciousness. He wished she had stayed out for longer, since now she had to feel the pain of her injuries until he finished healing her. Looking at the work he had to do, it was going to take a long time to fix everything. Seeing how well her lungs had recovered, he wished he had moved Naruto's body to take the Chidori in a part of her body that would have allowed the lightning to open the other scar tissue. Then again, he might have ended up being in the same situation he had been all those years ago, having to choose her life over healing her fully. He wondered if the pup would ever forgive him for not taking the risk, to see if he could do it. There had always been a small chance he could have done both, but the pup's life wasn't something he had found himself willing to gamble at that moment. When his darker half had asked who had reared the pup, who had had the influence to result in her treating Kurama like an equal, he had tried not to laugh. He didn't know if there was a true answer to that, but he had long ago noticed that he had started viewing them as such long ago. They had butted heads, especially when Kurama had tried to scare off the gentle one before he could hurt the pup. At the time he hadn't known the gentle one was aware he resided in the pup. If he had, he wouldn't have hurt the pup's love. As his darker self had stared at the pup, Kurama had felt a well of pride bloom. Whilst she would probably still swear and blame it on him, which was fair, she wasn't the little girl he had feared wouldn't see adulthood. No matter what, he didn't want her growing to end. When the chain wrapped around his neck, it was an easy choice. Whilst the pup tried to think of a way to save him, he turned to the Sandman, the one who would most understand what she was about to suffer. "Gaara," he growled, "get my pup to her father. He has my other half in him, and knows how to transfer that part of me into her. Promise me. Promise me you'll save Naruto." "Of course," the man assured without hesitation. "Kurama, don't give up now," Naruto snapped, as she tried to keep her footing within his chakra form. It was clear by the drawn expression on her face that it was a strain to stay connected with him. There was no sign of her giving up, and no sign that she had even thought about what was going to happen to her once he was stolen from her. His plan may not work, he had only suggested it on a desperate hope. "Naruto, how do you view yourself in regards to me?" "I told you before, I see you as a pain in my ass." She looked at him furiously when he snorted. "I see you as a yipping pup," he taunted. "And a valued friend." He barely managed the words before searing heat engulfed his body. He felt too stretched and too compressed. The part of his mind and soul that was bound to Naruto's, the part that always felt her heart beat, felt her pain, shrank and shrank until he was painfully yanked through the pinhole. He was torn, mutilated, feeling burnt and frozen. He was too large, too empty. His vision lost focus. Desperately, he shook off the feeling, staring intently as Sandman caught Naruto on his sand cloud. The redhead shot Shikaku a despairing look over his shoulder as he shoots across the battlefield. His gaze never wavered from the pup as he was pulled into the statue last. "I'm sorry. I tried everything I could to look after you. I tried to heal you, please know that." Chapter 71, Real or Not Real? He stretched back on the grass, feeling the sun warm his torso. Cracking an eye open, he saw Naruto dunk Sasuke under the water, making Kiba bark with laughter. Shikamaru smiled softly, closing his eyes again. He sniggered at the sounds of the Uchiha splattering, then Naruto's shriek followed by a large splash. "Aren't you going to join us?" Shading his eyes, he looked at Hinata, who was timidly hugging her bundled towel to her chest. "Nah, I'm good. Might swim later." "He probably wants to nap," Ino shouted with a laugh. Shikamaru lifted his head to try to glare at his teammate only to get a face full of water. From all the laughing he wasn't sure of who did it, though he had a feeling it was either Ino or Naruto. He reached for his towel that he had dumped next to him with Naruto's. As he rubbed his face, he felt his energy leach from his body rapidly. Moving the towel away, panic exploded into his system. Everything was dark. He couldn't hear his friends or Naruto anymore, couldn't smell the river, or feel the grass. His hands and fingers ached and stung, his legs burnt, and his ankle throbbed. Trying to take a calming breath, he attempted to move his arms. They were restrained. That's when he realized he was encased tightly. His heart pounded as he focused on controlling his breaths, and thinking through his situation. "Last thing I remember is the river. How did I get here? Were we attacked? Where's Naruto? Is she okay?" He heard something, as though far off. It took him a second to make out the muffled noise, but eventually he did. He gasped in relief and mild fear. "Shikamaru! Shikamaru!" Naruto's voice became clearer as light pierced into the dark. "I'm here. Shikamaru, it's okay." Again, he tried to remember how he ended up trapped. Then all at once the memories of what had felt like a year were ripped away from him. He still had them, but they had the haze of a dream. The last thing he truly remembered was trying to reach Naruto in her last moments. But he could hear her now. Was this more of the illusion? The light spread, stinging his eyes before it was blocked. Blinking, his eyes focused on a tanned face, rounded cheeks with whisker marks, and blue eyes. Ignoring his body's protest, Shikamaru lunged into a sitting position. He stared at her, taking in every detail to try and see through the genjutsu. Reaching up, he cupped her face with both hands. The blood on his palms stuck to her hair. "Are you real?" Naruto gave a relieved laugh and replied before tackling him to the ground. She buried her face in his neck, her back shaking and her tears dampening his chest. He just held her to him, feeling her heart beat with his. I was terrified I was going to lose and leave you trapped in there, Naruto admitted softly. I wasn't. I knew you'd save us. He decided to not voice how he hadn't known he was trapped, or his last real memory being her dying. A clearing of a throat made Naruto sit up and helped Shikamaru do the same. Looking over, he saw Sasuke, the fourth Hokage, and the third Hokage. The first two looked uncomfortable, with Sasuke looking up at the sky and the fourth glaring at Shikamaru. The third Hokage, however, had a smile of amused contentment so much like the one his son had often worn that Shikamaru had felt a pang of grief at the sight of it. Naruto ignored the three, her eyes still on the Nara before her. Can you stand? I think so. With Naruto's help, he rose to his feet and hobbled over to his girlfriend's dad and chosen brother. Both men were still acting in wildly different, yet equally awkward ways to do with him, but luckily the third was the same as Shikamaru remembered. How are you feeling, my boy? A bit tired, Lord Hokage, and sore, but I'll recover. Well, you were in the pod for almost 8 hours, the fourth muttered, his shoulders shifting as though he meant to move his non-existent arms. You would have lost some chakra. 8 hours? He yelped, looking over at Naruto. Were you fighting alone for 8 hours? No, I had Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke, Sakura, and even Obito. Naruto shrugged, looking across the battlefield as people were slowly recovering from being in the pods, connected to the now-gone tree. Obito was working for Madara, right? Shikamaru rubbed his forehead. Sort of, Sasuke sighed. It was Obito, pretending to be Madara, then it was Madara, with the Black Setsu helping him, then it was Black Setsu, who was actually working for this goddess who was also his mother. It was weird. Shikamaru nodded at that statement, deciding to not ask any follow-up questions. I'll be right back, Naruto muttered, nodding towards a masked man clearly from the Foundation. For some reason it didn't surprise him when the man knelt before the blonde. He had heard from his father that the Foundation had a new leader, and Naruto was an excellent choice. He had seen how much spending time with the members had helped her, and had heard from Sai how much Naruto had done for them. I'm sorry about your father, Shikamaru. The Nara looked over at the blonde man, trying not to wince at the mention of his recent loss. He remembered too clearly seeing his father happy, with his mother only minutes ago before he had gone to the river with Naruto and his friends. Except he hadn't. I appreciate that, Lord Fourth. He ignored Sasuke and the third who were shuffling off to the side to pretend they weren't able to hear them. You can call me Minato. The man sighed heavily, his eyes not leaving his daughter's form. I got separated from Naruto for the final fight. None of us reanimations were able to fight beside them. To hold back my panic, I started rehearsing what I was going to say to you when you woke up. Shikamaru steeled himself. Okay. Then Naruto came back, she and Sasuke broke the jutsu, and she went running to you. She knew where you were, like she had your position on the field map before the jutsu started. He glanced at Shikamaru, who nodded, agreeing to his guess. I knew Naruto was going to be powerful. Kushina was a force, all Uzumaki's kind of are, and all have a lot of chakra. And out of everything I thought about when it came to her, I had one hope above others. It wasn't that she was gorgeous, or strong, or even happy. I knew that, like everyone, she would sometimes not be happy, that strength and beauty aren't everything. The one thing I wanted her to have, and to always have, was her own, personal, home. Somewhere or someone she could go to and feel safe, be herself, especially if she was to become a jinchuriki. My little speech to you went out of my head when I realized I saw Naruto return to her home, and it was you. Taking a deep breath, Shikamaru turned to face Minato, who copied him after a lingering look at his daughter, as though afraid he would miss something. You know, when I worked out the 9 tails was in Naruto, I didn't react well. I had been putting the pieces together for a while and Naruto gave me the last hint, as though she wanted me to know. I didn't have an issue with her though. I asked. More demanded my father tell me who was the monster to turn Naruto into a prison. I was disgusted to hear that it was you, because Dad had always told me you were a hero. It didn't matter that he insisted that you wanted Naruto to be seen as a hero too. I couldn't understand why you would ever do that to someone, let alone someone so kind, smart, funny, and caring. If there was a person in the world who deserved the mistreatment the least, it was her. When I found out you were her father, I understood a bit better. It had to be an Uzumaki, and you knew how amazing she would be. He looked over at the blonde who was now talking to Kakashi-sensei, who had Captain Yamato on his back. The man wasn't looking well. How you think she sees me? I hope you're right, 'cause that's how I see her. It's how I've seen her for a long time. And I've never seen her as Kurama. And I stopped seeing Kurama as a monster somewhere over the years too. Minato gave a wet sniff and a nod in Shikamaru's direction. When I found out Kushina was pregnant, I started practicing how I'd threaten my daughter's boyfriend in case I had a girl. Funnily enough, one of the people I practiced in front of was your dad. He and Inoichi used to laugh that they pitted any boy brave enough to go for my daughter. Your dad, though, he hoped that our two children would be friends, and someone each other could rely on. I'm glad he got his wish. He raised a great kid. Thanks. Shikamaru sighed. I wish I had realized how supportive he was years ago. It would have helped a lot. At Minato's confused look, he elaborated, whilst keeping him ignorant of anything to do with the trauma Naruto suffered growing up. I had trouble realizing I loved Naruto for a long time. It took me almost 4 years. Then it took me another almost 5 years to work out if she was interested in me or not. Granted, she was on a training mission with Lord Jiraiya for 2.5 of that, so not so bad, I guess. The man frowned at him. You've loved my daughter since you were 8 or 9? I don't think I loved her from that young an age, but I certainly started liking her that young. Minato gave him a small smile. I was 10. Kushina declared she wanted to be Hokage in front of the whole class. Something between her boldness and her beautiful red hair just got me. Shikamaru chuckled. Naruto used to declare something similar. I started noticing her more than was normal when I was about 7, and she had just joined my class. But it got worse after a detention we had when I was 9. I thought I started noticing her more cause of the way she smelt, but I realized recently that wasn't it. It was her laugh, and how caring she was. She didn't really like to touch people, but she still brushed chalk from my hair. I don't know why, but that was it. When arms slid around his waist, he didn't jump, somehow knowing it was Naruto. I started noticing you more than anyone else when you told me I deserved better. That was our first conversation, he reminded, vaguely noticing the sniffle Minato gave. Naruto gave him a soft smile and an even softer kiss. I started having feelings for you when Kiba, Choji, and I were skipping class and got busted by Irika-sensei. He put a leaf on all our foreheads and started going on about the forehead protectors. You looked at me and went cross-eyed trying to look at the leaf. Then you smiled at me. You rarely smiled back, and I thought I was so lucky to see something as amazing as that. Shikamaru only vaguely remembered that day. It hadn't been a particularly unusual event. He did remember making Naruto laugh and being unable to help grinning at the sound. He had felt good to be the cause of it, and had had to bite down on the urge to tell everyone about it. The blonde's eyes moved to look in front of them before she sniggered. She stepped out from behind Shikamaru. You all right there, Dad? Turning to the fourth Hokage, Shikamaru found tears streaming down the man's cheeks. He nodded enthusiastically as he sniffled. Yes, I'm fine. I'm just so happy to see how grown up you are. You're everything I ever hoped for and more. I'm so glad you have someone in your life like Shikamaru. I'm so glad I was brought back long enough to help you, and to see a glimpse of your life. Shikamaru looked at Naruto, wondering if he should give them a moment. As though in answer, the blonde's hand shot out to grip his tightly. He hid the wince from the painful throb they gave in response. The damage he had caused them climbing the rocks was worse than he thought. Her mouth pulled tight and she stared at her father, silently begging him to stay. I don't know what to say. I don't want you to go. Naruto pulled her shoulders back, stepping in front of Shikamaru so that her father could see her fully. I'll be okay, I promise. Pervy Sage taught me a lot. I don't always eat my vegetables, but I'm working on it, and sometimes I drink, but Kurama stops me from really getting drunk. And I have friends. I didn't always, but I prefer having the great friends I have now over any other option. And Naruto looked at Shikamaru, before looking back at her father with her trademark grin. I'm happy. Minato smiled back at her, the corners of his mouth pulling down sadly as his eyes swam with tears. I know. I love you so much, Naruto. I love you too, Naruto sobbed, making Shikamaru hug her to his chest. Her father gave him a thankful smile when she leant into him. When Minato's form started to faintly glow, becoming translucent, Naruto wept harder. And Naruto. Yeah? Happy birthday. Shikamaru looked away as the father and daughter looked on each other for the last time. He spotted the third as he put a comforting hand on Sasuke's shoulder, who was keeping a purposely blank face. Even when the third disappeared in front of him, the Uchiha didn't drop the expression. Naruto had moved away from the forces who were starting to realize they had won thanks to the blonde and Sasuke. It didn't take her too long to pull herself together after her father left, perhaps because she had prepared herself for it. She still needed some time to compose herself though. She didn't speak on the topic. Shikamaru kept feeling like Naruto was waiting for something, whether good or bad he wasn't sure. He could see she wanted to say something to him, but held back. Sasuke sat silently on Naruto's other side, watching the forces scramble around. Shikamaru wondered if he was sticking close to her so that he could demand a fight from her when he was recovered. The way he had simply stood guard, scaring off anyone who might want to talk to Naruto as she grieved her father in Shikamaru's arms, made Shikamaru doubt it was truly about the fight. Both men jumped when Naruto suddenly laughed. When they looked at her in question, she laughed again. My dad was a dork. Surprisingly, Sasuke cracked a grin before dissolving into laughter. He's meant to be a genius, he choked out. When Shikamaru gave Naruto a questioning look about Sasuke practically rolling around on the ground laughing, she simply rolled her eyes in dramatic exasperation. Oh, finally, Naruto started saying, hand pointing frantically at her head. There's a voice in my head. Yeah, that's the Ninetales. Sasuke rolled his eyes. His name is Kurama, and no, not him, idiot. Naruto frowned. Wait, dear, repeat that. Are there casualties? What? Hang on. The blonde started looking around, spotting Shikamaru's teammates, making their way over to them tentatively. Ino, can you boost the connection with my subordinate? I think she's underground, and possibly injured so I can barely hear her. Patch Shikamaru in, he'll want to know about this. Patch me in too, Sasuke pouted. And me, Choji added cheerfully. Naruto ignored them, letting Ino put her hand on the other woman's shoulder. Dear, repeat your report. We were able to use your chakra to move the building, but we weren't fast enough. The shockwave got us. We had loosened too much heavy earth, and the roof collapsed. Are the others alive? What about the leaders? I'm sorry, Lady Naruto, I'm not sure. I'm safe, but I'm trapped in a side room. I've tried contacting Lion and Crow, they were the closest to me, but I haven't heard anything from them. Dingo was on the other side of the wall from me, but I know he is dead. Naruto swore softly. Do you need more chakra? If I give more chakra to you, Lion, Crow, and Hedgehog, will you be able to contact them? If you activate the seal again, it won't just be them, Deer admitted, sounding sheepish. I was able to mark everyone here shortly before the attack. It was after you sent the first wave of chakra. I should have told you, Lady Naruto. I'm sorry. The pathway is open to all of them. I can't turn it off. Don't be. That was great thinking, putting the welfare of everyone above the basic order. If I send chakra, that could help any injured to stay alive till we get there. I'm going to send chakra and I want you to relax this connection. Give me updates when necessary, but focus more on trying to contact those around you instead. We will be over shortly. Naruto lifted the left side of her shirt, showing an intricate seal on her tan skin. Taking a kunai out, she cut her left palm, then let her blood run thickly down the seal. She swayed, making Sasuke grab her shoulders. Shikamaru's eyes widened, remembering Naruto's green complexion on the battlefield, and the blood on her hand and running down her side from under her shirt. He tried to remember when in all the fighting he had seen that. When he realized, he gasped. She couldn't have, could she? It was certainly something she would think of. Naruto, did you save our fathers? Don't get your hopes up yet. Looks like I didn't enact my plan quick enough. Her gaze on him was soft. This had been what she had been waiting for, before telling him there was a chance. Naruto snapped her fingers and instantly 8 ninjas were crouching before her, wearing masks with different animal motifs to them. We need to find at least half a dozen of the best Earth-style users. We have some buried comrades. I can give them chakra if needed. A dozen would be better, but be quick. Ask the Kazakage and the Tsuchikage if they have anyone. Also, someone informed the other Kages about the buried headquarters. Understood, Lady Naruto. Once they left, the blonde turned to Ino and Shikamaru, clearly wondering how they would react to her secret. She froze for a moment when Ino lunges into her arms, hugging her tight. Thank you, Ino repeated over and over before pulling back. I'm going to gather some healers. They're bound to be wounded. Ask for Rabbit, Naruto instructed. Just find any Foundation member and tell them I sent you. They'll get you to them. Ino nodded, Choji going with her as she wobbled on uneasy legs. Shikamaru understood what she was feeling. He felt like his entire world had spun multiple times at that bit of news. Before his teammates were even out of earshot, Shikamaru pulled Naruto to him, cupping her face before kissing her passionately. He barely noticed Sasuke awkwardly wandering off a distance as he pulled back. I love you. In reply, Naruto just kissed him. Gaara had volunteered to help them, as had the Tsuchikage's son, Inoki, to transport the small number of allied forces, mostly consisting of Foundation members, to the headquarters' new location. Kurama's form overtook Naruto's. Shikamaru didn't hesitate to enter the transparent body of the fox, feeling the now familiar chakra brush against his. He looked across, seeing Sasuke, and surprisingly Sakura, also joining him and Naruto up at Kurama's chest. He simply nodded in acknowledgement at the two as everyone else tried to find themselves comfortable within the Nine-Tails form. The speed of a tailed beast was astounding. Glancing at both Naruto and Gaara, Shikamaru realized the two found it somewhat familiar, or even comforting, but he felt somewhat queasy. The redhead also looked a little upset. However, his mournful look alleviated when a loud shudder shook the ground and an enormous form landed beside them as Kurama skidded to a halt. Were you leaving me behind? Asked Shikaku. If you want to move a lot of earth, I'm your best bet. I'm glad you want to help, Gaara admitted softly, a small smile on his face. Somehow the One-Tails managed to look embarrassed. I'm not helping, I just don't want anyone thinking that they're better at Earth style than me. Of course, agreed Gaara with a chuckle. The Kage shared a look with Naruto, who quirked her eyebrow at him before jerking her head towards the back of Kurama's. Both jinchurikis shook their heads as the tailed beasts ignored them. Alright, everyone out, Naruto said. I'm sensing my chakra in this location, but I can't sense how many people or who is alive. She shot Shikamaru and Ino apologetic looks as the Earth users started surveying the area. Kurama lowered Shikamaru to the ground before disappearing back into Naruto. That probably means they are running on mostly your chakra at this point, Sakura explained. Are you able to funnel more into them if needed? I can, but I can't target someone particularly unless I'm closer to them. Naruto pulled up her shirt and ran her hand over her side, revealing the seal hidden on the flesh. This seal is connected to every Foundation member. If I order them to do something that takes a lot of chakra, I can also get them to open the seal on their side, allowing me to funnel chakra into them whenever I activate the seal. However, they have to close it on their side, otherwise every time I activate it, they'll get my chakra. I can close it, but there's two problems with that. What are they? Sakura asked. It's easiest to do when in contact with a person, and the other way is complicated and I forgot the hand signs. Shikamaru couldn't help the sigh he and Sakura shared at Naruto's sheepish admission. On the upside, it's only the people who are in the building who have it activated, and Deer can close it if she can move around to the others. Alright. Sakura nodded, mulling over what Naruto had told her. There was something startling watching Sakura, the woman who had always bossed not only her teammate but the rest of the once rookie nine, in the subordinate role. It seemed almost natural for both women to slip into the roles. There was no resistance or apprehension from Sakura, and Shikamaru was fairly certain that was purely because of Naruto. She was still lacking in certain areas, such as remembering important things, but she had a confidence about her. She gave orders, formed plans, without a hint of hesitation or self-doubt. Shikamaru knew, though, that Naruto would still be open to counsel from others. If any of their chakras dipped to low, you might have to give them more. Is that doable? Sakura asked in a professional voice. If needed. Kurama and I can't really help with raising the headquarters up or healing jutsus, so we're going to stay back. Naruto looked at Shikamaru, studying his face as Sakura started to arrange the healers in preparation. I'm fine, he assured her. At the moment, I'm not thinking about it. It's easier that way. If he's dead, nothing has changed, except we can put his body to rest. He looked over to where the Earth-style users were trying to work out how best to raise the building without risking it collapsing. But if I give myself a moment to hope, then I'll feel pain again. Do you want me to try to sense him? I might be able to if I funnel enough chakra into the ground. He smiled at her, kissing her cheek. No, thank you. How are you doing, though? I feel like I haven't had a chance to breathe yet, Naruto admitted. On top of it, Old Man Sage dumped a lot of crap on me about Sasuke that I don't know how to handle. What do you mean? Shikamaru sat down next to Naruto, shooting a look at the dark-haired man standing off to the side looking lost. He went to grab the blonde's hand, only to flinch. Naruto sighed, wordlessly pulling basic medical supplies out of her back pouch and starting to clean his hands as she explained how the Sage of the Six Paths, who Naruto had somehow talked to, had told her that she and Sasuke were the reincarnates of his sons. Admittedly, he could see the parallels between Sasuke and Naruto and Madara and the first Hokage. However, he failed to see how the two 17-year-old genins were the Sage of the Six Paths children reborn. It's bullshit, Naruto finished, voicing Shikamaru's thoughts. She bandaged his hands, paying extra attention to the finger's missing nails before she moved to the gash on his shin and his twisted ankle. Yes, I had to struggle at the start. Sasuke had much better control of chakra than me, and he seemed to just breath everything they were teaching us. But once I got to know Sasuke, I found out that he worked hard to get where he was. As a Uchiha, he was expected to be naturally talented, but he wasn't. And Itachi told him he had to get strong enough to kill him. His entire life revolved around that, and when he thought he was succeeding, the Chunin exams happened and he saw that not only were there many stronger people but that I had excelled a lot more compared to him. Even if we were fairly on equal footing at that point. Not only that, she went on, but I realized that I'm as strong as I am because of my parents, and because I'm a jinchuriki. Yes, I've worked hard, but if I wasn't a Uzumaki then I wouldn't have Kurama with me or have my chakra level, and my dad invented my best move. I completed it, but who's to say if I would have been able to if I wasn't his daughter? When the old sage was telling me about his sons, I kept thinking that they didn't sound like us. He tried to say that his version of Sasuke used jutsus for pretty much everything, but Sasuke doesn't do that. He prides himself on his ingenuity, and his hand-to-hand. It's just stupid. We're ourselves, not some two people who died years ago. Now I don't even know what to do with our fight because it was meant to be between Sasuke and me, not some random people. I agree. Shikamaru's soft words pulled Naruto out of her rant. She blinked as though she had forgotten there was someone listening to her angry ramble. She handed him the jar of healing balm Hinata had given her, clearly wanting him to keep it. It was working well on the cuts on his hands. Do you want my suggestion of how to deal with Sasuke in your fight? I can't believe I'm going to say this, but you need to give him what he wants. You want me to let him destroy the village? Naruto yelped. No, of course not. Shikamaru shook his head with a sigh. What I mean is that with everything you've told me about Sasuke, about his brother, and what he pushed him into, what Orochimaru, Danzo, and now Fate has done, I think he needs to make a choice. His own choice, no one else's. And he has to live with the consequences, whatever they are, but he has to make the choice. If he wants to fight you to the death, I'm sorry, and I hate saying this, but you need to fight him to the death. And I don't mean until you knock him out and drag him back. The blonde sniffled. I don't want to. I know, but he deserves to choose what he wants to do about all this. You can try to talk him out of it if you want, but it still needs to be his decision. Shikamaru took Naruto's hand, bringing it to his lips. He heard the Uchiha coming up behind him as he turned her hand over, kissing her palm softly. He was starkly reminded of doing something very similar, even with Sasuke shadowing him, but at that time Naruto had been unconscious after fighting Gaara. Naruto barely blinked at the uncomfortable clearing of the throat that Sasuke sounded. At the second clearing, she smiled at Shikamaru before looking up at the other man. Hey! We have business to finish. Sasuke looked over at the Earth-style users who seemed to be having issues. I'm going to go check on Ino and how the progress is going, Shikamaru stated, giving Naruto a meaningful look before getting up and joining his team. He hid the fact that Naruto had accidentally shown how low her chakra truly had by the fact that she hadn't funneled any into him to heal him. He chose not to comment, and instead hoped that Kurama was able to help her. Looking over his shoulder, he watched the two strongest leaf ninjas move further away. He tried to focus on Ino, who was fighting off the hope for their fathers and seeming to lose. Even the knowledge that the Earth users had to dig to the headquarters instead of raise the building didn't grip his attention. Shikaku was making the most headway, and as long as they could stabilize the tunnel, then it wouldn't be long before they knew the fate of their fathers. He estimated that he lasted 5 minutes before he went to see how Naruto was. The longer she was out of his sight, the more his heart raced, and dread pulled in his stomach. He just had to see her, just a glimpse at least. He couldn't help if the two were fighting. It would be like a bug fighting a volcano. But he needed to know if Naruto risked either death or the loss of her brother. He just needed to see her. Turning around a large rock formation, he halted before darting back to hide behind it, silently cursing the pain through his leg. The two were just on the other side, silently standing together. Naruto had been staring at Sasuke, while Sasuke had been staring blankly at their surroundings. Sasuke, Naruto finally spoke. What do you want? The man didn't answer, just watched the sky quietly. When Shikamaru started to think he was never going to respond, he gave soft, choking noise. His shoulders started shaking. I don't know. His sobbing grew stronger at the admission. He grabbed Naruto with frantic fingers, pulling her into a tight embrace. I don't want to hurt you. I'm sorry I ever did. I thought I needed power, that was my only purpose. And I tried to kill you for that. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Sasuke, Naruto hushed soothingly. No, it's not. I once told you that you could refer to yourself as a Uchiha. That was because I saw you as family. That's what I want. I just want a family again, people who love me, people who won't use me or lie to me, or make me think I'm not good enough. But I'm not even sure I truly had that with my family. His words were cut off as tears came more rapidly. Shikamaru shifted, turning to go back to his team. He felt a burning to his cheeks and throat at the privacy he had just invaded. He was halfway back when a cheer rang from the group in front of him and Choji ran to meet him. We're in. The Foundation has gone in first to reinforce the ceiling, but then we can get in to check on the survivors. Choji grinned widely, something Shikamaru almost managed to match. Instantly, the Nara turned back in Naruto's direction, wrapping his ankle in shadow and jogging to where the two Team 7 members had been. When he came around the rock formation, he made sure to be loud enough to warn them. Sasuke had his back to Shikamaru, trying to discreetly wipe his face. They're in, he gasped. The two didn't hesitate before rushing with him to the still buried headquarters. Shikamaru could barely stay still as they stood at the tunnel entrance, waiting for the Foundation members to surface. A ninja with a rabbit mask appeared beside Naruto on bended knee. Lady Naruto, 2 of the 5 root members have been lost. We haven't been able to get close to the others yet. Thank you, Rabbit. Ensure you retrieve all the bodies to return to their villages. Is it safe to enter? Healers and a handful of support ninjas to help with the moving of patients would be the wisest move. Rabbit had barely finished talking before Sakura, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji rushed down the long tunnel, Naruto shooting a thanks over her shoulder before following. The headquarters was so dark that Shikamaru could barely make out the shapes of Foundation members moving about. He looked behind him at Naruto, about to ask how they could even see, but was stopped by Naruto's voice ringing out. Night vision off. Bring out lights. She waited a pause before she activated Ninetales mode, allowing some light as the Foundation members used summoning scrolls to produce lamps. They have night vision? Sakura asked in surprise. Yeah, I got a rundown of jutsu's the use. Naruto started scanning the room. Shikamaru knew his uncle would have still been strapped into the machine that had allowed him to boost his telepathy, so his body would be near the middle of the room. His father, however, who had been touching Uncle Inoichi to allow them both to talk to Ino and Shikamaru, could have been flung anywhere. Silently, he held his hand out to Naruto, asking her to lend him her light. With a sad smile she took it, letting him lead her towards the center of the room. They had to scramble over large slabs of stone, and Shikamaru had to lift Ino over what looked to have once been a large, heavy desk. The closer they got to her dad's possible location, the more her legs shook. To stop his from being rendered into a similar state, Shikamaru kept taking steady breaths of the dusty air, choking it down his airways. He was also certain that if Naruto wasn't so powerful, her fingers would be crushed beyond repair in his grip. Finally, they reached the location. He scanned the area, spotting blonde hair tangled around an apparatus encasing someone's face. Uncle Inoichi! He cried, running to the man. He reached his side at the same time as the man's two daughters. Dad! Dad, answer me! Ino reached out to him, only to stop. She turned to Sakura, a pleading look filling her eyes. We need to get this off him. I don't know if it's safe to move him though. What if his spine has been injured? We need to secure his neck before we move him at all. But first we should check his vitals. It was clear what Sakura was trying not to voice. There was no point in carefully moving Ino's father if he was dead. They would have to move on to others. She signaled Shikamaru to move so that she could step in closer and hover her hands over the man's chest, seeing as Ino's hands were trembling violently. All three stared at Sakura. Shikamaru wasn't sure if he was breathing properly as he waited. There's a heartbeat, Sakura practically sung, smiling at Ino. Her face turned more serious after the moment of levity. But there's bleeding into the brain. We have to get him out of this and relieve the pressure before I can assess the damage. Ino nodded, taking on a calmness she had previously been lacking. Understood. Ino, Shikamaru said in a croaking voice. I need to find my dad. I know. We're good here. He turned to Naruto, noticing Choji standing behind her, scanning the area for a trace of the other Nara. Can you sense him? Naruto's eyes took the unfocused look Shikamaru was well acquainted with. I can't tell who is who. They are all still running on my chakra more than their own. He would most likely be on this side of the building. He indicated the way Uncle Inoichi was facing. He would have been thrown by the impact that took out your subordinates and caused the roof to come down. Lifting her arm, Naruto pointed to a cluster of large boulders that were once part of the ceiling. There's someone over there. Instantly, he, Naruto, and Choji ran to where she had indicated. None of the retrieval team were digging in that area, but a few stopped at their mad dash, moving to join them. Shikamaru dropped to his knees, clawing at the smaller stones, tossing them behind him. He noticed the red soaking into the bandages on his hands but didn't care. Dad! Dad, can you hear me? He threw his shoulder against a large slab that was balanced onto of two others. Whoever it was had to be under them, or wedged between. He grunted against the strain until Choji and Naruto, dropping the rocks they had been moving, took a side each and lifted it. He barely wheezed out a thanks before he scrambled over the under slab, looking through the gap. Dad! Eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Dry, cut lips mouthed a word to him. Shikamaru. Hang on, we'll get you out. He jumped back, looking over the rocks. The two that his dad's head and torso were between didn't need to move to lift him out, but there was one pressing on his legs, and another angled against it. He grabbed the one on a diagonal, trying to pull it towards him. A hand grabbed his forearm. Stop! Shikamaru tried to shake off the hand, but its owner pulled him away from his father. Stop! You'll kill him! Turning with a snarl, Shikamaru was faced with the rabbit mask. I'm getting him out. I know. But his left leg is completely crushed, and from this angle we can't see his right. He's been there for hours, for longer than we were trapped in the genjutsu. The blood cells in his leg are dead. If you take the pressure off it, the blood will rush back to his heart and kill him. Rabbit patted his arm, somewhat awkwardly. We'll save him, but we can't save his left leg, and maybe not his right. Step back, we will take over. Naruto took Shikamaru's hand, pulling him back and wrapping her arms around his middle. They watched intensely as Choji and the Foundation members moved the two slabs on either side of his father's upper half. The man was barely conscious. Once he was revealed, Rabbit beaconed Shikamaru, letting him cradle his dad's head, and when he continued to mouth words, instructed him to give him dribbles of water to wet his mouth. The blood flow in the right leg has not been disturbed, but there might be some nerve damage, Rabbit informed them. I'm going to have to render him unconscious to amputate his left leg though. I've examined his head and he luckily doesn't have brain damage. Whether he survives I can't say. He is badly injured and is suffering from some blood loss. Removing his leg runs some risks too. Shikamaru nodded his understanding, unable to form words. He kept his father's head in his lap after Rabbit had touched the older Naruto's forehead. When the ninja pulled out a saw from a summoning scroll, he debated leaving until it was over, but couldn't bring himself to. Naruto hugged his head to her chest. She dropped a kiss onto his crown, keeping her lips there as she covered his ear not pressed to her jacket. One hand staying on his father's slowly rising and falling chest, he put his other over Naruto's, helping to block out the noise and the sound of his own whimpers. He squeezed his eyes shut so tightly that he saw spots. Focusing on his breathing and the sound of Naruto's heartbeat allowed him to block out everything else. Finally, he felt Naruto slowly move her hand from his ear, and instead stroking his back soothingly. With minuscule pace he lifted his head, looking at his father. His chest still rose and fell steadily, and his leg, just above the knee, was bandaged tight and cleanly. He knew it wasn't the missing leg that made his father look small and fragile in that moment. When Rabbit requested Shikamaru move, he rose onto shaky legs, letting Naruto hold him up. The woman's controlled strength was reassuring as he watched Foundation medics lift his father onto a stretcher. He followed them numbly, barely noticing as Foundation members reported to Naruto and Gaara that there were 7 casualties in total out of the 30 people in the building. Then they voiced concern for the survival of his father, Uncle Inoichi, and a Cloud woman in critical condition. With the journey ahead of them, he blinked. Shouldn't we stabilize them here? He asked. We don't have the resources to help them. Rabbit sighed, glancing at Sakura before turning their masked face to Naruto. I can perhaps stabilize them here for some time until we can get a safer method to transport them. Naruto cocked her head to the side, her eyes glazed. Shikamaru watched a look of mild surprise over her features as she blinked. He had seen her talk to Kurama a number of times and was used to the flicker of expressions she went through unconsciously. Gaara watched her with a mournful frown. She refocused on them seconds before Kurama's form appeared around her. With a beat of hesitation, she stepped out of the translucent form. Put the wounded into Kurama. His volunteered to carry them and to ensure their survival. If you and Kurama permit me, Sakura started tentatively, I would like to accompany them to help with their treatment. I'm sure you, Kurama, can keep them safe, but I don't want you overtaxing yourself after the fight. Naruto looked at the giant fox as he grinned toothily down at the pink-haired woman. His growling voice shook through them all. All right. No promises I won't eat you though. Something about Kurama being a medic transport, whilst threatening death, made Shikamaru laugh. His wet chuckle caused some raised eyebrows, but he didn't bother to stifle them until Ino and Choji came out of the tunnel escorting Uncle Inoichi. He gave his teammates a questioning look. He's alright for now, Choji explained, putting a comforting hand on Ino's shoulder. Until the swelling in his brain goes down, and he wakes up, we won't know if he has any lasting injuries. Shikamaru and Naruto sighed with relief as Uncle Inoichi was put into Kurama's form next to Shikaku. It was decided that Gaara would take the Cloud and Sand members with him, minus the injured Cloud woman who was too unstable to travel without Kurama, and Inoki would take his villagers. They would both journey to meet up with the forces who would be making the trek home to their respective villages. The Rain members were to travel with the Leaf until they encountered their fellow ninjas, since it was easier for all to split now. Kurama assured them that he could take everyone the distance needed to meet the bulk of the Leaf and Rain armies before the two forces had to part ways. They were also in charge of the most injured people. Thankfully, only 6 people were in drastic states, the rest having somewhere between bruising to broken bones. Shikamaru doubted the fox would be able to carry everyone for long, what with there being 15 of the recovery team, then another 17 people from the headquarters. Thankfully, the headquarters wasn't too far from the army, at least for the fox. It took Naruto scolding Kurama to pull him away from taunting Shikaku about not being able to as easily carry people as him. But finally, they were saying goodbye to the others, with Gaara promising to tell the other Kage about the injured members traveling to the Leaf. Shikamaru's stomach jumped into his throat with the leap that Kurama took, but within moments they could spot the marching forces. He was startled when, once the forces were alert to them, a cheer went up, loud enough to echo in his eardrums. It made sense though, the two who had ended the war were standing next to him after all. However, when they reached the ninjas and exited Kurama's form to ease his burden, he was stunned to find some of the praise heaped upon him too. He was saved from whatever awkward reaction he was bound to give by Uncle Choza, as well as a combination of Nara's, Yamanaka's, and Akamichi's pushing to the front. Many squinted up at the fox's glowing form, trying to make out the shapes protectively laying in his chest. Uncle Choza, Danny, Ryota, Eiji, and Jun stared at Team 7 pleadingly. Surprisingly, the Naras weren't looking at Shikamaru for answers, but Naruto. They weren't turning to her for comfort on purpose, that was clear, since his mother was still the heart of the clan. Instead, they all knew that Naruto was his emotional core. Unfortunately, she didn't understand why they had turned to her, and was instead looking at Shikamaru, waiting for him to give them the news. "We got them," Shikamaru spoke levelly, and perhaps a little emotionlessly. "We won't know the extent of their injuries until they wake up, but for now, they're alive." The difference between the 3 clans were evident in that moment. The Naras mostly sighed with relief, the Akamichis gave a good-natured cheer, the Yamanakas gave a boisterous cheer that thundered through the area. Watching them, Shikamaru felt his mouth stretch into a smile, tears pooling in his eyes. Looking at his teammates, he found the 3 of them in similar states. One glance at Shikamaru and Ino had Choji pulling them into a tight hug. "They're alive," he whispered, not seeming to believe his own words. "We're alive." He gazed at the woman next to him, watching her blink slowly, a content smile on her face. He went to run his fingers up her side, only to swear, pulling his fingers back. Naruto frowned down at them. "How'd you do that to your hands anyway? Trying to get to you when you were dying. I didn't want you to be alone. I didn't make it, even with people trying to help me." Naruto gave him a sad smile. "Thank you for trying so hard. I wish you didn't hurt yourself doing it, but at the same time, I'm glad you tried that much." After a beat, she stifled a yawn. "I think you need to sleep." "I can't. If I go to sleep, Kurama will go back into me." She suddenly sat up sharply, hugging her jacket to her chest that she had been using as a blanket. "I should get back to him." "Sure, breath, love." He sat up beside her, kissing her shoulder. "He's with our friends. Sakura is staying with him, and no one in the army is going to let anything happen to him. But come on. We'll head back and get you some food." Naruto gave him a grateful smile as they rose to their feet and started dressing. When they walked up to their friends, they found that their absence had been noticed. "There you two are," Ino scolded. "We got you both some food, but we had no clue where you had gotten off to." "We weren't far," Shikamaru answered nonchalantly, wondering if anyone would notice the bite mark on Naruto's tan neck. Kiba sniffed. "Why do you two smell like sweat and each other?" "I mean, I had just finished a whole day of training when I entered the war, so I haven't had a proper shower in almost 5 days. Only a quick river shrub," Naruto said with a shrug. "That doesn't explain why you two smell like each other," Kiba pointed out. Shikamaru didn't say anything, instead raising an eyebrow at Kiba before dropping to the ground, his back resting against a rock. He reached up, threading his fingers with Naruto's as she lowered herself to the ground next to him. Oh, seriously? Kiba yelped. Gross. Please tell me you weren't anywhere near us. Choji chuckled at the man, handing 2 food rations to the couple. Ino, who had indicated her suspicions of their level of intimacy when she had seen Shikamaru's hiki, gave a cackle. He noticed a blush coating both Hinata's and Niji's cheeks, whilst Tenten looked scandalized. Shino and Sai looked unfazed, and Sasuke had his horrified expression buried in his hands. Lee and Sakura, however, had different looks of confusion on their faces. Lee turned to his teammates, asking them what Kiba was so shocked by. When Tenten muttered about Shikamaru and Naruto being together, Lee was enthused. I know, Tenten, they are a lovely couple, aren't they? I just don't understand why they have to be a couple away from us. With his face turning deeper red, and a scowl, Niji pulled Lee close to whisper in his ear. Shikamaru gave a breath of a laugh as he watched Lee's eyes widen in shock. Wait, what's going on? I feel like I missed something, Sakura said, looking around the group. It was fair. She was been jumping down from Kurama's chest when they had first appeared and probably entered the discussion halfway through. Naruto and Shikamaru had sex, Sai answered plainly, making Naruto give a bark of laughter. Sai, never change, the woman requested. Seriously? Sakura blinked at the both of them. Why would you want to lose your virginities on the hard ground? Beds exist. Shikamaru found himself staring at Sakura, having not expected that. Naruto, however, fell against him, holding her sides as she laughed. We did use a bed the first couple of times, Shikamaru assured. I'm surprised you aren't like Kiba or Tenten right now. Sakura waved him off. I'm a healer. I've had many awkward discussions before. Though I will say I hope you're using protection. Don't exactly need it. Naruto shrugged. And none of the times were planned. Shikamaru drew his arm tighter around her, knowing her casual reference to her infertility was at least half put on. How many times have you done it? Kiba shrieked, his face turning scarlet. Trying to not grin darkly as he watched his friend squirm, he replied, Depends. When you say times, are you talking about sessions or individual times? Naruto, always the mischief maker, picked up on what he was doing. Yeah, cause depending on which the answer changes drastically. I'm kinda surprised at that, Choji said, his shoulders lightly trembling with suppressed laughter. Shikamaru gets tired from leaving the house. I mean, I don't have to leave the house for this. Except this time, but I was already outside. Pretty sure if Naruto was outside naked, he would have more than enough energy to run outside, Hinata piped up. Hinata, don't join this conversation. Niji begged, only to be waved off. Please stop. Everyone ignored Kiba. If Shikamaru's stamina is that low, I worry for Naruto's satisfaction, Sai voiced, making Choji, Ino, and Hinata laugh, and making Sasuke, Kiba, Tenten, and Niji look like they wished they were somewhere else. Tenten did simply walk off, Lee following her to make sure she didn't try to get her hands on the fan they had used against the Gold and Silver brothers. She wasn't strong enough for it, no matter what she thought. Sakura, surprisingly, looked like she thought Sai had a point. Hey! Shikamaru frowned at the artist. Don't worry, Sai, turns out Shikamaru has a reserve of stamina just for it. Oh, that's good. Please stop. Kiba bemoaned, making Choji, Shikamaru, and Naruto laugh. Why? Why is it always me you three have to traumatize? Because you're the only one who really reacts to it, Choji explained, and we used to do it to Shikamaru too. Remember? I regret becoming friends with you lot. Naruto, as revenge, I'm becoming Hokage, and having Shikamaru as my advisor. Kiba pointed at the blonde as she lounged against Shikamaru, her exhaustion hitting her again. The Nara rolled his eyes at the other man before Naruto gave Kiba a lazy, lewd smile. Do that and your advisor and I will have sex on your desk. Shikamaru's snort was drowned out by the laughter of the others. Even Niji was chuckling into his fist at Kiba's expression. After they finished eating, Lee came jogging back to the group, a grin on his face. Shikamaru wondered why he was so happy, but noticed that he was staring at Naruto as he drew to a halt. I just came from seeing how Gai-sensei was feeling. He is recovering well. Thank you so much for saving his life, Naruto. The blonde waved him off bashfully. It was the old six-pass powers, not mine. I can't repeat it, unfortunately. He opened all 8 gates, Neji remarked. It doesn't matter where you acquired the abilities or how long they last. What you did was not only impressive, but something we are eternally grateful for. I feel like I've missed a lot, Choji said, getting a few nods of agreement. Sasuke gave a brief explanation, since Naruto would have struggled whilst fully conscious. But you really have none left. I have some dregs left, Sasuke said, Naruto nodding in confirmation. It's the only thing currently keeping me going. When was the last time you slept? Sakura asked, looking closely at her teammate. Just after my last shower. Naruto tried to give her a humorous smile, but it came off as tired. She sighed. I should talk to old Granny about something. She shook her head, clearly trying to dispel the sleepy fog. Her something was probably to do with the Foundation. Although some now knew she was the leader, she was probably not allowed to announce it still. Shikamaru noticed the blonde shoot a fearful look at Kurama, making him squeeze her shoulder and swallow his own anxiety. I'll stay with him, he whispered in her ear. Thank you, she whispered back. Although they had been quiet, it seemed their friends had noticed Naruto's hesitation. They all noticed Kurama's large paw shift as thought to wrap around his holder. It didn't, since he clearly stopped, looking around as though worried that someone saw his protectiveness of her and was going to use it against them. Naruto, do you mind if I go with you? Hinata asked softly. I feel like I need to stretch my legs, and since Shino and Kiba might be a while talking to their parents, now would be a good time for it. Oh, excellent idea. Lee jumped to his feet. I would like to come too, Neji added, standing and pulling the Gen into her feet. He let her lean on him as they walked. Both Shikamaru and Kurama watched her go, the fox's large ears pricked for any noise. Neither of them paid any attention until Ino cleared her throat, making Shikamaru glance over at her. Shikamaru, if Naruto healed Gai-sensei from dying from the 8 gates, perhaps she healed her, issue? Ino glanced at Sasuke and Sakura. You know that thing. I know about her infertility, Ino, Sasuke grumbled. Naruto made some comments when we were younger about never having a family. It wasn't hard to put together what she meant. I'm aware too, Sakura assured gently. I was one of the medics working with the children of Iron. Okay, well, wouldn't she have healed her scar tissue? No, grumbled Kurama. She had the half of me that Minato had, not the half that knew what she had suffered, so that half didn't suggest she heal herself. But she knows about her infertility, and she knew how well she could heal people at that moment, Choji pointed out, making Shikamaru sigh. Yes, but she doesn't actively think about what she's gone through, and she'd never think about herself in the middle of a fight. She barely thinks about herself on a day-to-day basis. Sasuke swore, realizing Shikamaru was right. None of us will breath a word of this to Naruto. Got it. Shikamaru watched everyone nod silently. In the distance they could see the blonde and her temporary guards making their way back to them. Shikamaru was thankful when Kurama asked him if he wanted a lift to the village when they first rejoined the army. Not only did it take the weight of his ankle, which he had started wrapping in his shadow, but it allowed him to be with Naruto and his father. Ino was also with them, watching her father closely. Naruto had asked Kurama to allow Sai to join them as well, for the Yamanaka girl. It seemed like Kurama didn't mind Sai and had agreed. How are they, Sakura? Shikamaru asked, watching his father's face contort in pain. They are stabilizing more. I can't tell you about Inoichi without next of kin permission. Dad is Naruto's legal guardian, and Shikamaru is like family, Ino piped up, her voice wobbling. The levity of earlier hadn't lasted as long as they had all hoped. Oh, well then. With head injuries it's hard to say the extent of the damage until they wake up and start recovering. He has extensive bruising and swelling to a portion of his brain, and the bleed added pressure to it. We won't know if the bruising will all go away or become permanent damage until he starts to heal. It's all about waiting and seeing at this point. Sakura looked at Ino and sighed before looking back at Shikamaru. Are you comfortable with me discussing your father in front of them? Yes. Ino is family, and Sai is a friend. Alright. We won't know if your father has damage to his other leg until he wakes up, but Kurama is manually pumping his heart right now. What? He heard Naruto gasp beside him, and saw both Ino's and Sai's heads snap up to look at Shikaku. But he just had to have his leg removed. He suffered a lot of bruising and lacerations from being thrown, as well as blood loss from a puncture to his side. On top of that, sometimes the trauma can weaken the heart. If he is to live, it's up to him. Sakura sighed, looking like she wanted to comfort him but knowing it would be unwelcome. What exactly do you mean by it's up to him? Naruto started rubbing circles on Shikamaru's back, staring intently at the pink-haired woman. It's hard to explain. But sometimes the body just gives up in these situations. Your dad is strong though, and I'm doing everything I can to help him. I can't promise you anything right now. Shikamaru nodded numbly, staring at his father, focusing on the rise and fall of his chest. The only thing anchoring him to reality was Naruto's hand on his back. He wasn't sure how much time passed before she spoke. Look! Raising his head, he spotted the village. The gate was wide open, and swarming on either side of it were the people of the village. As they drew closer, Shikamaru could feel Kurama tense around them. Then the thunderous applause started. Whether it was simply the relief of knowing the war had been won, or everyone realizing Kurama was marching home a hero, no one in sight gave him or Naruto a loathing look. There, Naruto pointed. Following her finger, Ino and Shikamaru saw theirs and Choji's mothers, as well as Ai. All four women were crying. As Kurama's bulk prowled past, they waved. Mom! Ino cried out, almost falling out of the fox's form. Sai managed to pull her back. We will find you inside, darling, Aunt Momiji yelled back. Ino nodded dumbly, watching as they passed their mothers. She nearly jumped out of her skin when Kakashi-sensei suddenly appeared in the mix. We will be going to the assembly area in front of the Hokage Tower. From there, those who need immediate attention will go to the hospital, those who need bandages, or disinfecting, things of those sort will be sent to the academy, and everyone else will be sent home. Genins will be there to register where everyone is going so families can find out. Naruto, I'm certain you and Sasuke are going to sleep for days once you both stop. Where would you like to be for that? Home. Sasuke can stay in my guest room if he wants. Kakashi-sensei nodded. You can go straight there after getting Inoichi, Shikaku, and our cloud guest to the hospital if you wish. I want to make sure they're settled first. I'll make sure Eiji knows when I go, so he can check on me. He is one of my personal healers, after all. The man turned to leave, only to pause. Happy birthday, Naruto. You've done really well. He saved her from a response by jumping to the ground. Shikamaru looked behind them, at the trailing line of ninjas, and the civilians filing in behind. Because of Kurama's bulk and long strides, they were towards the front of the line. He tapped Naruto on the shoulder, pointing behind them. At her confused look, he smiled at her. We look like a school of fish. The grin she gave him was more lovely than anything the infinite Tsukuyomi could have created. He kissed her. Welcome home. You have a secret to tell me. I didn't forget. You promised once you returned you'd cough up. Not a secret, she assured. I love you. Smiling, he raised Naruto's hand to his lips, kissing the back of it. Chapter 72, A Grain of Hope. He hadn't expected the flurry of movement and organizing would be overwhelming after the illogical nightmare that had been the battlefield, and yet, he barely registered how he was sent to the hospital. He remembered Konohamaru was the one to sign and he, Naruto, and the others in Kurama. The young genin had shot forward, yelling Naruto's name upon seeing the signature blonde hair of his big sister in the fox's form. He hadn't even paused before jumping up to wrap her in a tight hug, tears in his eyes. He had finally let her go only to jump on Shikamaru with another strong embrace. After that they had been herded to the triage sector that had been set up outside the hospital. Kurama had disappeared back into Naruto once Shikaku, Inoichi, and the Cloud Woman had been passed into healer hands, but Shikamaru noticed that Naruto stayed next to Shikaku, holding his wrist. Sakura stopped Ino and Shikamaru at the door to their father's room, telling them to wait whilst they got them stabilized. Naruto, however, had been ushered inside. Shikamaru had had to swallow thickly, realizing that Kurama was still manually pumping his father's heart through his girlfriend holding his father's hand. There was no denying that both Naruto and Kurama were exhausted. The natural tan of the blonde's skin had paled to a sickly chalky gray, her shoulders were slumped, and she seemed to barely register when people were nearby. The way she kept seeking him out with her eyes told him she wasn't liking the last part. When Sakura allowed them access to the room, the pink-haired woman reminding Ino she would have to get to work soon, Shikamaru went to Naruto, wrapping his arms around her waist. Slowly, she loosened her grip on Shikaka's wrist, prying her fingers from the pale flesh. As she moved her hand away, Shikamaru noticed how it shook. Her whole body felt like it was trembling. Is his heart beating on its own? Shikamaru asked into the silence. No, Ino answered, the machine next to him is so Kurama doesn't have to. They'll keep a close eye on both of them. Someone should stay with him. As she spoke, the door slid open violently, its wheels rattling as it hit the end of the run and bounced. In rushed their mothers, who instantly pulled their respective children into a hug. Aunt Momiji reached out her hand to hold Naruto's as the blonde was engulfed in Yoshino's arms with Shikamaru. Aiji, Ryota, and the twins' mother, Curva, entered after them, Curva quietly closing the door. Their mother was one of the tiniest women Shikamaru had ever seen. He had never noticed because she had a terrifying presence, something that was probably helpful in interrogation. Now, however, with her eyes red, her arms hugging her stomach, and a lost look on her face, she looked every inch of her 4'7". Aunt Curva, he spoke over his mother's shoulder, his voice wavering. I know, Shikamaru. She sniffled, Ryota wrapping his large arms around her small shoulders. Mum handed his body scroll over. Ryota's words made a sob come from his sister. Ai, having had to be told by her mother and brother, looked to be still in the early stages of shock. Shikamaru wondered if it should have been him to tell her, since he was temporary leader until his dad was able to fulfill his duties. Selfishly, he was thankful he hadn't. Yoshino finally pulled back, and Momiji and Ino taking the opportunity to pull a stunned and stumbling Naruto into their arms. The heart of the Naras went to her niece, who was being comforted by her husband. Pulling her into her arms, she ordered Eiji get her a glass of water and a chair. What happens now? Ryota asked, looking at the adults in the room. The leaders of the clans will have work to do, Yoshino admitted, looking sorrowfully at Ino and Shikamaru. Chozo will be able to help, but there are tasks you two will have to do. I'll do everything I can, but I have to help here too. Ino gestured at the hospital at large after her mother let her and Naruto go. I can help. Whatever leg work you and Shikamaru need, I've got, Ryota exclaimed, looking almost desperate for them to accept. Both of them thanked him. I've been told to get you and Sasuke situated, Naruto, Eiji said, handing his wife her water. And I'll check up on you both regularly. As will two of your other healers. Sasuke estimated that you will both be out for a few days, at least 3, once you finally stop. I'm going to go home and shower soon. You should go now. Shikamaru noticed her reluctance. I'll take you so that you don't collapse on the way. No, you have too much to do, and your dad is here. She shook her head, which nearly threw her off balance enough to land on the floor. Momiji and I are going to stay here, Yoshino assured, taking her husband's hand. Please, for us, let Shikamaru see you safely home. I'll find Choza and Choji and start getting the clans in order, with yours and Ino's permission. Ryota looked at them both, ensuring he had their authorization. It felt good to see his cousin like that. He had always enjoyed the ranks within the clans, and the traditions and protocols. Shikamaru had always found them tedious. Mum, I'll be back later. If you two need anything, let me know and I'll get it for you. He kissed his mother on the cheek, his lips coming back wet from the silent tears she had been crying. Just take care of Naruto, Yoshino whispered, her eyes staying on her husband's face. With a nod to his mother, Shikamaru started leading Naruto out of the hospital. The further they walked, the more she stumbled and needed him to support her. It seemed like every few meters they had someone or groups of people spot them and, seeing they were too exhausted to socialize, gave them solemn nods or even bows. The somber look through Shikamaru. There was so much respect and faith in their gazes. He knew that Naruto was seen as a hero to the village after defeating pain, but their eyes weren't exclusively on her. He remembered people giving that look to his father. Even now his chest would swell with pride, knowing that the village saw his father the way he himself did. Having that gaze aimed at him felt unnatural, unearned. The stretch between the hospital and their apartment was endless. But finally, they reached the door, only for Shikamaru to realize something. I left the key in my bedroom at the estate. Naruto waved a half-hearted hand, turning the handle. The door yielded. Konohamaru had my key to look after my plants. I told him to give it to Sasuke earlier. When they entered, they heard the shower running, Sasuke's shoes sitting by the door. Naruto had to lean against the wall to kick her own off. Shikamaru fared much better. Walking further into the home, they paused. On the dining table sat a white box with a shaker of salt on top of it. As Shikamaru turned to ask Naruto what it was about, Sasuke ungracefully stepped out of the bathroom in fresh, plain clothing. Naruto looked at the Uchiha, pointing at the box and the salt with an amused smile. "Happy birthday," he grumbled. "It's just from the local store. I can't even remember what I bought." He shot Shikamaru a look before shifting from foot to foot. Birthdays are a Uchiha thing." Naruto and Shikamaru shot each other a smile as the blonde stumbled to the box. "I told Naruto years ago how other clans might have picked up the tradition too," Sasuke went on, watching the woman open the box and pull out a cupcake with orange frosting. "I mean, it might have become more common in the 4 years since I left. Maybe everyone does it now." Shikamaru bit down on his chuckle, but Naruto didn't. She had cut the cupcake into 3 pieces and gave each male a piece. "Sasuke, I know birthdays are normally celebrated in the village. Choji let it slip coming up to Ino and Shikamaru's birthdays." "Oh." A blush dusted his cheeks. He shoved the cake in his mouth and nearly choked on it when Naruto hugged him suddenly. "Thank you?" the man grumbled. "It was nothing." Naruto let go of Sasuke, collapsing into a chair by the table, eating her slice of cake. She made a comment about cakes tasting better without the salt, something Sasuke snorted at. They both seemed to not notice Shikamaru's confusion. She watched Sasuke turn towards the main bedroom, his steps wobbly. "That's my room," she called out, halting his steps for a moment. "Mine now," he taunted. "I mean, if you want to sleep in the bed Shikamaru and I lost our virginities in," she sniggered. Sasuke's face turned crimson as he turned sharply and bolted to the spare bedroom. After a chuckle, Naruto sighed. "I know I should have a shower, but I'm not sure I can stand up." Shikamaru held out the last piece of the cupcake. "Eat. It's good, you should have it." He shook his head, a soft smile on his face. "Eat, please." Once she had, he grasped her upper arms, pulling her to her feet and practically carrying her to the bathroom. Turning on the water to warm it, he got Naruto to lean against the basin as he stripped them both. He tested the water before guiding them both under the stream. The shower was surprisingly spacious, Shikamaru and Naruto not being cramped. Naruto used the wall for support as Shikamaru started cleaning them both. She stared out past the glass panels as they slowly fogged. As Shikamaru turned to grab the shampoo, he heard her give a sob. Turning back sharply, he watched her face crumble. Wrapping his arms around her, he whispered into her ear, "It's all right. Just tell me what's wrong." "I don't know," Naruto whimpered. "It's all over, but I don't feel relieved. I feel like I should be doing something, but I don't have anything left. I can't even think. Just the idea of doing something makes me want to lay down. I can't do it anymore." "Naruto, you don't have to do anything. I'll finish washing you, I'll tuck you into bed, and then you can sleep for as long as you want. I'll check in on you regularly, and when I'm not here, Ryota will be, or probably mine and Ino's moms. You don't have to do anything anymore. You've done more than enough, more than anyone expected." Naruto sniffled, nodding. Even so, she wept against Shikamaru's shoulder, clinging to him as her body shook. Eventually, with a deep sigh, she leant back, allowing Shikamaru to kiss her before he grabbed the shampoo. It felt good to finally be clean. As he sat on Naruto's bed, he used her first aid kit to rebandage his hands. He was thankful he had moved some clothing to the apartment before marching out. The lack of dirt, blood, and grit made him able to think more clearly about what he had to do for his clan. Looking over at his girlfriend, he found her curled on her side, blinking at him slowly. "I'll stay until you fall asleep, love." She gave him a small smile at his words, silently reaching out to put a hand on his leg. Within seconds her breaths had evened out, any tension in her body evaporating. Shikamaru waited 5 minutes before he slowly stood up. Leaning down, he was startlingly reminded of when Naruto had been unconscious just before the Chunin exams. This time he did kiss her lips. Thinking back, he was very thankful he didn't let his childish idiocy get the better of him and make him do something inappropriate. As he snuck to the front door, he heard a soft tapping, making him almost reach for a kunai. Instead, he took a breath and opened the door. Standing there were Eiji and Irika-sensei. "Are they asleep?" Eiji asked in a professional manner, stepping into the room without waiting for an invite. "Naruto is not sure about Sasuke." Shikamaru looked at his old teacher questioningly. "I thought I'd stand vigil for them. I know you have places you have to be and I didn't want Naruto to be alone." "Thank you," he breathed. He stayed with them until Eiji had set up the jutsus to ensure Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't dehydrate or starve whilst out, and gave Irika-sensei bedding for the couch, before heading out. He had had to fight a smile at his teacher's uncomfortable look at realizing how at home Shikamaru was. The fact that there were a few framed photos of the two around the apartment probably added to that impression. And he had no doubt that Irika-sensei would eventually find the coffee in the cupboard and realize it wasn't Naruto's. He made a mental note to get groceries for the apartment. Even if Naruto wouldn't need them for a few days, Irika-sensei would. He started thinking about his clan, and Ino's, adding other tasks to his list. It wasn't uncommon for one of their clans to help the other if the heads of the clans were out of commission and the heirs were unable to shoulder the tasks. He remembered when his father had gained his face scars. He had been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the swelling was so bad he couldn't see well. Shikamaru had only been 5 at the time, and his uncles had taken it in turn to do any duty his father couldn't around the estate, along with Uncle Satoru. This fact made him unsurprised to see Choso's bulky form standing in front of Shikamaru's house, calmly issuing orders to a handful of Akamichis and Naras. "Uncle," he called, drawing close. "Shikamaru, my boy." The large man tried to smile, but it was strained. "How are they?" "Stable, but we won't really know for a while." Shikamaru blinked away the sting in his eyes. "I think I know what I have to do, but I won't say no to some guidance." "Of course." Uncle Choso moved to sit on the porch. "I just sent some of my people to accurately identify the diseased Akamichis. I've sent Yamanaka's to do the same for Ino, since I know she's needed in the hospital at the moment, but I didn't want to overstep with you. Out of the 3, you have come into leading the most, and I want you to know I see that. I have sent some Naras to just ensure that any ninjas who are well enough to return to the estate don't need aid with food, medicine, or mobility. Best to be safe." The young Nara cleared his throat. "Thank you, Uncle. I was going to send the Naras who normally oversee our burials to do that, then get them to give me a list of the next of kin so I can inform them. I don't know if I'm meant to do it in person or by letter. Normally it's your mother who does it. She provides a letter from your father and normally some food. In war times, it's a little difficult to prepare enough food to give to everyone. There will be people within the village who will do that for everyone as part of the healing process. Grieving people typically forget to feed themselves." "Okay, so a letter is expected, but I probably won't be able to spare the time everyone needs. I might ask for Yoda to give them out. I don't want to neglect the time each person requires to progress the information I give them, but I can't give them it in person without hurting the rest of the clan's needs. I'll ask Ino to delegate someone to hand out the letters too, maybe she can find time to sign them. Aiko can help with that, and Momiji can always sign in Ino's stead. She might like the distraction. Your mother can do the same for you if she wishes to." Shikamaru nodded, making another mental note to ask the two women. I have to make sure all wills of the Nara deceased are accurate to the known wishes they submitted for our files. I also have to see to all injured Naras, make sure they are properly identified if they can't identify themselves, alert their next of kin to their whereabouts if they are immobilized, or if they are fit to return home that they have full access to anything and everything they need. Especially if they live alone or it's only them and small children. But you've already done that last one. And I need to find someone to do that for Ino's clan. Choji can do all that for Ino with Aiko's help. You just focus on your clan at the moment. You seem to have most things figured out, but you forgot something. At the confused look he received, Choza went on. Members of your clan, especially those high on the clan's council, will want to be helpful to you. You have to not only delegate tasks to them, but you have to ask for their help with your own health. What's something you need that is a bit more personal, not a professional task? Shikamaru thought. I need to get groceries for Iruka-sensei who is looking after Naruto, and I need to get food to Mom, and Momiji, and Curva, and Aii. Oh, and Eiji too. You will have to inform the clan what has happened with your father and Inoichi. When you do, ask if any of them would be willing to do one of those tasks. Don't delegate them, just ask. One of the most important things I learned from my father was that one of the best ways to help the clan is to let the clan help me at times. That feeling of being useful, of aiding in the running of their family in any way can give them the focus or sense of relief they are needing in that moment. Thank you. The first thing I'm going to do is gather the clan to let them know about Dad and to let them know the plan for our loved ones. Is Choji going to tell the Yamanaka clan? No. I've already told Ino that it is something she needs to do herself. The first few hours upon returning from war are always hectic for the hospital, but thankfully most people would have been seen to before we journeyed home. Some will need surgery, but Ino can find time to see to her clan. Lady Hokage will see to that. Uncle Choza dropped a meaty hand onto Shikamaru's shoulder, making him sag a little under the weight. You're doing well. If you have any questions, send someone to get me. And if you need anyone to check in on Naruto, Choji, and I will be happy to do so. Thanks. Iruka-sensei is going to stay at hers, but I'll let him know if he needs a break when I'm not free that he can ask you. Uncle Choza nodded, rising to his feet. I have to see your mom and Momiji so I know what to tell my clan about Shikaku and Inoichi. I'll drop by later to check in. Shikamaru watched his uncle walk through the estate's gates before he took a deep breath. The moment he rose to his feet, Ryota rounded the corner. Were you listening in? Partly, he admitted, shrugging. I heard you say what you were planning to get me to do, and so I started strategizing how to go about that. I would have started already, but I wanted to check if there was anything else. I want you with me when I address the clan. We're down the head, and the heart isn't really up for looking after us all, so I want the clan to see the two of us are standing strong. To warn you, cuz you're going to have to tell the clan what's happened to Naruto. I know she's okay, but the rest are going to wonder why we won't be seeing her around for a few days or more. It'll put their minds at ease. Hell, I've had some civilian members comment that they miss seeing her around when the war was being fought. She stands out in this estate, after all. Shikamaru snorted. Yeah, there's no denying that. The Nara clan was always seen as stoic, but telling them about their leader, and the leader of the Yamanaka clan being hospitalized caused a wave of sorrow to ripple over their expressions. Shikamaru, after having outlined what he was going to do about any injured or deceased members, as well as all aid for the mental recovery of all clansmen, he made a purposely offhand comment about how he wouldn't be in the estate that much for a few hours a day. He said it in a way that it was clear he was trying to find time for those moments away from his clan duties. When one of the members, a fourth cousin who had been too old to march out with the rest of the ninjas, asked what he would be doing, Shikamaru explained how his mother and Aunt Momiji needed food delivered, and possibly a change of clothing every day, and Iruka-sensei needed groceries since he was looking after Naruto. He was faced with a number of high-up clansmen instantly delegating amongst themselves who would do what. One of the clansmen knew Iruka-sensei, having worked at the school, so decided they would also check if he needed anything else like clothing. A third cousin declared she and two of the other women would be the ones in charge of gathering clean clothing for Yoshino every day, and a man not too much older than Shikamaru decided he was on meal prep, and asked Shikamaru's permission to open a kitchen for anyone in the estate who might need an easy meal. He of course agreed, though he pointed out that the village would have similar kitchens open for everyone, so he didn't want the man overworked. Hiro pushed forward when Shikamaru was ready to dismiss everyone from the council room. He wasn't one of the councilmen, nor had his mother been before him, but as a high-ranked jonin he had a right to be in the room. I would like to sometimes sit with Naruto to ease Irika. Amon from the Hyuga would also volunteer if he knew. We're her friends, but I don't know if Irika would trust us without your blessing. Shikamaru nodded, knowing that the two men, and June, had gotten very close to Naruto during her time in the Nara estate. I'll let him know when I visit later today. As everyone filed out, Shikamaru looked down at the paperwork he had to fill out. Most were funeral rites that he had to sign ready for a name to be added later. Once he had all names of lost Naras, he would have even more to do, but would probably have to delegate to others to get it all done in a timely fashion. In the meantime, he could sign most of the paperwork at Naruto's apartment. With that, he gathered the forms he had to work on and headed out, making sure to mention to the members guarding the gates to the estate where he was going. Over the next few days, he split his time between Naruto's bedside, his father's bedside, and the estate. He felt stretched thin, often falling asleep in an armchair he had pulled into Naruto's room, or finding himself stumbling to bed well past midnight for only a handful of hours. Ryota regularly checked in on Shikamaru, making sure he ate, even if it was snacking, and drank plenty of water. Even so, after the third day he could feel his head starting to throb. He spent the majority of the day at Naruto's hoping she would wake up. She had estimated 3 days after all. Truthfully though, he had no clue how she was able to work out how long she would be unconscious recovering from chakra depletion. As he and Irika-sensei ate lunch and talked about nothing in particular, they heard a shuffling, then the click of an opening door. The two men whirled around to face Naruto's door, only to find it still closed. It took them both a moment to blink away their surprise before they let the location of the sound dictate where they looked. They watched Sasuke stumble out of the spare room, his clothing wrinkled and his hair disheveled. He made a beeline for the bathroom as he yawned. "Is there food?" he asked as he bumped into the lounge, barely slowing his steps. "Yes, I'll heat you up some lunch." Irika-sensei stood, moving over to the leftovers, grabbing a third plate. Luckily, the villagers that had furnished Naruto's apartment had given her a full set. "Thank you," Sasuke muttered before he disappeared into the bathroom. Shikamaru waited until the other man had filled his stomach some and properly woken up before he spoke. "Do you think Naruto will wake up soon too?" The rogue nin shook his head, not looking up from his plate. "She used more chakra than I did. She had been fighting for longer, and I had time to recuperate as I traveled here before joining the battle. She's always had more chakra than me, even without touching on Kurama's power, but I'm pretty sure having Kurama extracted, and the result of that, took a lot out of her. I'm not even sure how long she'll be out, but she'll recover." Shikamaru couldn't help the deep disappointment that those words caused. He wanted to hear Naruto's voice, see her eyes light up and a smile pull at her lips. But he couldn't deny that Sasuke's reassurance that Naruto's sleep was all she needed calmed him. He had found himself low on chakra many times, especially since he had a pitiful amount compared to many other ninjas. However, he had never become comatose. "Do you and Naruto reaccumulate chakra quickly?" he asked, making Sasuke look at him in confusion. "Yeah, why?" "That's the only reason you both didn't burn out. If I had pushed myself that hard, I would have had my chakra veins destroyed. You both were able to push past your limits, which shouldn't be possible. But that's why you two back off from a fight and even get your opponent to talk to you. 5 minutes for you two, it can replenish your chakra enough, can it?" Sasuke frowned as he pushed his plate away. "Yeah. I didn't realize it wasn't common for a long time. Naruto was the one to give me the idea to trick my opponent into giving myself the time I need. When we fought together, she would naturally get them talking, or we would cover each other to give each other breathing time. It wasn't until Kakashi ran out of chakra in a fight that I realized it took longer for others to get even a little back. What a drag. You two are basically the definition of powerhouses. He nearly jumped when his words caused Sasuke to laugh. He knew the man was human, but it was still creepy. As the day went on, Naruto still didn't wake, but also Shikamaru started to realize how little he truly knew about Sasuke. The man had watched Shikamaru fill out paperwork for almost an hour before asking him what the forms were for. When he explained how he was checking over the wills of the Naras who had died in the war, and checking the living wills for those in the hospital, Sasuke had asked why it wasn't the next of kin doing it for each individual person. The Nara had been surprised by the question, since Sasuke had also been born to the head of a clan. Well, some don't have an actual next of kin. Their parents could be gone, no siblings, cousins, or partner. The Naras typically don't have more than 2 kids, so after a while it happens that some Naras, though they are family, feel more like neighbors since there is so much separation over time. On top of that, a lot of couples are both ninjas, so they could have both died, or one could be dead, and the other in hospital. And then, there is always the risk of an argument between the person's close family. I don't know about all clans, but Ino's, Choji's, and mine have a rule that once a clansman either becomes a genin or turns 16, whichever becomes first, have to create a will and have the head of the clan sign off on it. The next of kin of all these people are doing anything that needs to be done with their treatment, or inheritance, but I have to just ensure everything is following the wills and that everything is done correctly. It's a drag, but I'm glad my dad doesn't have to deal with it. Should I be sitting in view of the papers? Sasuke asked, looking as though he was going to get up from the table. None of this stuff is sensitive material, he assured, only to get a confused look from the other man. But it's clan information. Any and all clan information should be kept from those outside of the clan, Sasuke said, sounding suspiciously like he was quoting someone. Shikamaru shrugged. I guess our clans just operate different. We have things we wouldn't broadcast to the village. He thought of their gift to feel things through their shadows, but at the same time we don't have anything we would hide from people. Our jutsu is even one other people can learn, we have just perfected it. The style comes naturally to us, but we've never stopped others from using it. I guess cause your clan ability is entirely hereditary unless through nefarious means the secrecy is a bit more needed. Sasuke pondered what Shikamaru had said. I'm not sure our level of secrecy was the wisest choice. Maybe the village would have trusted us more if we were more open. Maybe you would have been more open if the village trusted your clan more. Shikamaru gave Sasuke a blank look when he looked at him in surprise. Sasuke, you can never know what would have happened. One led to the other, but who knows what came first? Maybe either. Power causes fear. Naruto is a great example of that. She was a harmless child, but she had power in her, so people feared her. Your clan was powerful. One person with power can show that they will use it for good, but a clan has to be more careful with their displays. You can never guarantee a large group of people will all be good people, so there is always a risk of fear. Your clan is filled with geniuses that could easily seize power. Shikamaru gave the man a cynical smile. And we have low chakra. Part of the reason we are so lazy is because we don't like exerting ourselves unnecessarily and using chakra. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not lazy, I'm just saying that weakness is known to the entire village, which makes people feel safe. So if I wanted to make a place in the village for my clan, I should let our weaknesses be known? Sasuke pulled a face, clearly uncomfortable with that thought. No, just maybe don't be so closed off that it breeds mistrust. Hearing Naruto talk about you, even Ino, who thought she knew you well, was surprised. I don't think you let anyone but Naruto see who you truly are. None of us could understand why she wanted to get you back after what you had done to her, and the things we were hearing. But talking to her about the real you, I can understand. I can't say I like you, but I don't want to break your nose as much as I used to. Comforting, the other man snorted. It's the best you're getting from me. He managed to get all of the paperwork done, even if it took him well past midnight. With that monumental stack out of the way, he knew he should have a lot less to do the next day. He couldn't say he was thrilled by that fact, though. His father's state was still precarious, and now he didn't even know when Naruto was going to wake. Every time he stopped to think about 2 of the people he cared about the most, he felt like he couldn't breathe. He knew that, When in hardship or in confusing times, he turned to either his father or Naruto to help. He didn't need them to take over, or give him the answers, he just needed them there, to hear their voices, to find comfort in their presence, and mostly, he needed to know they were safe. Naruto, he knew, would be fine, given time, but his father didn't give him such confidence. As he stepped into Naruto's bedroom, he felt another wave of that, now familiar, feeling wash over him. Shikamaru stifled the sob in his throat as he tried to blink away the burning in his eyes. There was time to prepare for the worst case. Logically, it would be best for him to prepare himself mentally. If his father pulled through, he would be elated, but if he held on to that shred of hope, only to have it ripped away, he wasn't sure he could survive that. Not without Naruto. He still remembered the white noise that clogged his head and emptied him of anything but pain and shock when he thought his father was dead. Something told him that watching his father slip away in a hospital bed, surrounded by loved ones he didn't know where there would be more painful. The tailed beast bomb was quick. He had time to say goodbye, but then he was gone, and then Shikamaru was fighting for his and others' lives. There had been nothing he could have done. He couldn't stop the bomb, he couldn't reach his father, he could only give his father one last goodbye. Now, he laid on a bed, unaware that he was surrounded by loved ones. His father was always strong, and yet, they may have to watch him slowly slip away without a fight. But to give up that hope felt like willing his father to die. In the end, perhaps the extra pain the hope gave would be worth it over the guilt of getting rid of it. Swallowing the lump in his throat, he looked at the armchair. He had curled up in it a few times to get some shut-eye whilst watching Naruto, but it was honestly uncomfortable. He looked at the space beside Naruto. It wasn't like they hadn't shared a bed multiple times, but something about her being unconscious instead of simply asleep felt cold. She was unresponsive in her condition, not a sound, or a twitch in reply to him kissing her forehead or holding her hand. Even so, sleeping in the chair, out of reach of the blonde, made him feel hollow. Grabbing his pajamas from the drawer, he changed before slipping under the covers. His side of the bed was cool, but there was a radiation of warmth coming from Naruto. Once he was comfortably settled on his back, he turned his head, looking over at the woman beside him. Reaching out, he brushed Naruto's growing fringe out of her eyes. She gave a noise, not quite a sigh or a moan or a groan, but it seemed like a soft mixture of the three. He held his breath, wondering if she was finally waking. He could see her eyes flutter behind their lids. They didn't open though. Instead, she rolled towards him, shuffling her head onto his shoulder. This time she did sigh, one arm and leg sliding across Shikamaru's body until she was cuddled tight into him. Wrapping his arm over her shoulders, he kissed her head, feeling his raging mind starting to ease as eyelids became heavy.